just a word about the schedule. Will begin in a couple of minutes with a meditation, probably about 20 minutes arriving meditation. I'll do a talk, give a talk today, and I kind of feel some enthusiasm, not that I don't every week, but particularly around the theme today, which is a teaching of the Buddha, really, really central teaching of the Buddha, but that we don't necessarily, of teachers don't, cover as much as some of the other teachings, but it's a really key teaching called the 7 factors of awakening, 7 factors of awakening, 7 qualities that are essential really if we want to cultivate the deepest freedom that's possible in this, in this human existence. So I'll talk about that today, and I think in the coming weeks as well, just kind of unfolding, unraveling, whatever the word is, speaking about the different aspects of these teachings on awakening. And so we'll have a talk, and then Emily will lead us in some mindful movement and get into our bodies, and we'll come back and have some sharing either in the full group or in small groups, small breakout groups, and then we'll finish with another meditation and some announcements. So it's fairly simple schedule, and Ursula shared that a hybrid would be appreciated from Switzerland. So feel free, other than during the meditation, to share, what's coming up for you, what's present, anything you'd like to share, to use the chat as a way of connecting with each other. And so we'll begin with a meditation. I just invite you to find a posture that's comfortable, relaxed. Turn my light down a little. There we go. I often like to come back to Martha Postlethwaite's poem, Clearing, as a kind of a reminder to come home to ourselves. She says, do not try to save the whole world or do anything grandiose. Instead, create a clearing in the dense forest of your life and wait there patiently until the song that is yours alone to sing falls into your open, cupped hands and you recognize and greet it. Only then will you know how to give yourself to this world so worthy of rescue. So you might think of, the coming out of the kind of the hustle bustle, the hurly-burly, the busyness of our lives, all the to-dos, and just consciously creating a space, kind of in the silence, in the stillness, where we can just open and be with whatever is present. Make space for whatever is arising, whatever's present in the body and the heart and the mind. And then in that stillness, in the quiet, can come perhaps some clarity, some insight. Maybe the heart opens a little more. And then we can go back into our lives, with a different quality of mind. So consciously creating a space, clearing in the forest, dense forest of our lives. So if you're comfortable, letting your eyes gently close, letting the attention and drop down out of the thinking mode. Just connect, feel the body, feel your body. in contact with your seat or the surface beneath you. Feeling the weight of your body pushing down on your buttocks, on your thighs, your feet on the floor. Feel the sensations of breathing. And just notice how your breath is right now. Breath is a wonderful gauge or barometer of our kind of well-being. When we're stressed or tense, the breath will tend to be short. When we're angry or fearful, the breath contracts, the body contracts. When we're more calm, spacious, at ease, the breath tends to be more deeper, fuller. So just checking in, noticing what's present right now. And you might invite the breath to deepen, consciously taking a few longer, deeper breaths. And see if the deeper breathing can help you settle a little bit more, relax the body and the mind. Breathing in, calming the body. Breathing out, calming the mind. This is from Thich Nhat Hanh. It says, when I entered the temple as a very young monk, I was taught to recite these lines the first moment I woke up. Waking up this morning, I smile. 24 brand new hours are before me. I vow to live each moment deeply and to look at all beings with the eyes of compassion. So looking at yourself and all beings with the eyes of compassion. It's letting the breath help you settle, and when you're ready, letting the breath come back to its natural rhythm. It's breathing in and breathing out. Connecting with this being that's you, here now. It'd be helpful to invite a smile to your face. A smile sends a message to our nervous system, to the brain, that we can be at ease, that we don't need to be vigilant, hyper vigilant. We can just rest in being here. So inviting a smile, maybe bringing somebody to mind who easily makes you feel happy, joyful. It's really priming the pump of ease, of well-being, if you can. Inviting the smile, maybe letting the smile come down into your heart, smiling into your heart. The smile connects us with others and with the world. Just inviting that connection. And a practice that can be helpful at the beginning of a meditation can be to just take a few moments to reflect on gratitude, on some things in your life that you feel thankful for. We tend to focus a lot on what's wrong or what we lack or what we need. We very easily forget about all that we have. Even if we're working with challenges and difficulties, we can come back to some basic things we appreciate. This body, just this being alive, beauty and joy of nature, the animals, the birds, the trees, the air. Measure of good health that we have, other forms of security in a very insecure world, changing world. These teachings, these practices, might connect with gratitude for how they support us in our practice and in our lives. Just opening to what's present for you right now, in the heart, the body, the mind. The invitation of our practice is to meet whatever life is bringing, whatever is here right now, with acceptance and with kindness. We can't do really anything about what is showing up. That comes out of earlier conditions and causes. But we can choose how we meet what's arising. Just inviting an attitude of quality of acceptance and kindness towards whatever's present right now, whatever's here. Welcoming the guests in Rumi's words. Can you meet what's here right now with compassionate curiosity, with a quality of kind interest? What is this? What does this feel like? What's here right now? How does it feel? How does it change and move? And making space for whatever is here. Kind attention. And as a way of helping, just to support being here, it can be helpful just to let the attention rest on the breath, breathing in and breathing out. Letting the breath be a home base for your attention. Without some focus, it's easy for the mind just to go on walkabout, go wandering off, to whatever is pulling us, whatever's motivating us, our impulses, our fears, worries, memories, habits. We'll just tend to kind of wander around. So it's very helpful to have an anchor or a home base where we rest our attention, and then when the mind does go off, we just incline it back. Kindly just let the attention come back to the body, to the breath, to this moment. Come out of the stories and back here. Just noticing what's present right now. Is anything calling for attention? If the mind is kind of going off into the future or the past, or plans, memories, daydreams, maybe making very consciously, kindly letting the attention come back. If there's some feeling of discomfort or something difficult, just see how it is to make space for that, just to let the feelings come and go. You could let your attention shift from the breath if there was a feeling of discomfort in the body, a kind of ache or a pain or itch. Just make space for the feelings, letting them come, letting them be, letting them go. So if you can, letting the awareness, compassionate awareness, be large enough to include whatever comes up, whatever's arising. Can I say yes to this? Can I make space for this? If a difficult emotion arises, say sadness, you might just pay attention to see what your habitual tendencies are in relation to working with that difficulty. You know, maybe you kind of push it away. I don't want to go there. Maybe you get into some elaborations, narratives in the mind about it. Oh, why this is happening, and just notice your relationship to the experience. And if it's really calling for attention, just invite a wholehearted opening to what's present. What's it like to make space for the sadness? Notice where you're feeling it. What are the sensations that go with it? Where are you feeling? Do they move? Do they change? Do they get bigger? Just letting the container of awareness be large enough to hold everything, letting it come, letting it be in its own time, just letting it go. If it, the sensations, the emotion kind of abates or lessens, you can just gently, excuse me, gently, kindly let the attention come back to the body, come back to the breath. Just sense yourself here too, feeling part of this community, being held and supported by everyone else who's here, particularly if you're working with something that's painful or difficult. It's connecting with this. Our interbeing, our interconnectedness, interdependence. This gift of community. Just noticing how it feels to meet all of your experience with kindness. Just having this wish to meet whatever is here with acceptance and with kindness. And if it's hard to do that, if there's resistance, see if you can meet the resistance with kindness. Just recognizing that there's resistance here. There's not wanting or not feeling able to open fully. Just meet that with kindness. See if you can make kindness really the container, kind acceptance, the container that holds, excuse me, that can hold everything, whatever's coming, whatever's arising. We'll finish with this poem by Roshani. There is a brokenness. There is a brokenness out of which comes the unbroken, a shatteredness out of which blooms the unshatterable. There is a sorrow beyond all grief, which leads to joy, and a fragility out of which depth emerges strength. There is a hollow space, too vast for words, through which we pass with each loss, out of whose darkness we are sanctified into being. There is a cry deeper than all sound, whose serrated edges cut the heart as we break open to the place inside which is unbreakable and whole. So taking your time, coming back, opening your eyes if they're closed, coming back into the group. And again, welcome to everyone and anyone who joined us since we began. I want to talk today, as I mentioned earlier, on cultivating the 7 factors of awakening. And I'll just say a few words, kind of put these teachings in context. The Buddha said that he taught one thing and one thing only: suffering and its end. Suffering and its end. So he was concerned not with, answering philosophical or conceptual issues about, where life came from and how it's going to end. He was really concerned to help us live freely, joyfully, peacefully in the world, and having experienced himself that awakening to, the deepest freedom possible in this human life, he wanted to share it with others. And the most important question, or the fundamental question, is, can we live free of suffering? Is there an end to suffering? Can we find a way out of the tangles that keep us caught up in, anger and fear and greed and all of these qualities that, that just, keep us tangled in suffering? So all of the teachings are really ways to get us untangled from suffering, untangled from the ways we struggle with life. We get caught up in the push and pull. I've got to have this. I've got to get rid of this. Don't like this, want this, and he taught that it's possible to end suffering in our lives. And he provided this extraordinary roadmap. I mean, considering it was 2,500 years ago in a very, very different, much more less technologically advanced and developed culture, this incredible roadmap of the human psyche and of the qualities and skills we need to develop, or that we can most helpfully develop to free ourselves from suffering. Because that's what it's all about. It's like, can we untangle ourselves? And to really, he said, we can move from wherever we are, even if we're at the darkest place in our lives, the kind of rock bottom, that if we accept that this is where we are, that we can, through through cultivating the skills and practices of the teachings of the Dharma, that we can find our way out of suffering and live freely in the world. We can live free of suffering, however painful our situation may be. But what's key is to realize the benefits of the teachings. We have to train our mind. It doesn't just happen, or it rarely happens. Left to our own devices, if we're not consciously cultivating qualities of, kindness and compassion and insight, being present, then the mind will tend to gravitate towards, oh, what looks nice? Oh, I like this. Oh, no, I could have some of this. Oh, but I don't like this. Kind of this pulling and pushing that, we're pulled along by, whatever, the nearest shiny object is. And that's really a path to suffering. So we need to train our minds. The Buddha said nothing causes us more harm. Nothing creates more harm than an untrained mind. Not even your worst enemy could do you more harm than an untrained mind. You know, maybe at some time in our lives we've had an untrained mind. I mean, maybe we still do. Maybe hopefully we've got some practice, some training that's kind of say, oh yeah, this isn't so helpful to keep doing this, you know, to keep repeating the same things and expecting, you know, a different outcome, as it were. So nothing can do us more harm than an untrained mind. Nothing can be more beneficial. There's nothing more beneficial than a trained mind. You know, because trained mind, we can incline towards happiness and well-being. We can see, oh, this isn't helpful. It isn't helpful if I'm, you know, doing harm to other people, because I'm not just harming them, I'm also harming myself. You know, if I'm stealing and I'm, you know, I'm doing things, you know, that are unethical, or I'm caught up in, you know, harsh judgment or hatred, then I'm creating suffering within myself, as well as whatever I'm doing in the world. So nothing can do you more harm than an untrained mind. You could say all of the unnecessary suffering in our lives and in the world comes from our untrained minds. You know, the what we see in the political world, for example, you know, the divisions and all of the, you know, the hostility and antagonism and conflict, and the wars that, you know, are so pervasive. They come out from untrained minds. They come out from thinking, oh, if we don't get this, then those bad people are going to take them from us, and then we have to attack them first. And it's out of these kind of delusions, out of the fears that aren't met with awareness and with compassion, that we act out in the world our, you know, our unresolved mind states, you know, unwholesome, unskillful mind states. So the Buddha taught that really a path of training that involves two broad sets of practices. One, and I've spoken about these quite a bit in other times, two broad kinds of practice. One is to abandon unskillful mind states, and the other is to cultivate and develop skillful ones. So the Buddha would say, abandon the unskillful and cultivate the good. Abandon the unskillful. He said, you can do this. If I didn't think you could do it, I wouldn't ask you to do it. If it caused you harm, I wouldn't ask you to do it. But because it results in, you know, in benefit to you, I say cultivate the good and abandon the unskillful. So we might think of it as like a garden. That I know a number of you are gardeners. That we want to, you know, we want to uproot weeds and plants that are invasive and harmful, you know, that aren't creating the kind of garden that we think is, you know, beneficial, that we want to create. And we want to cultivate plants and flowers that create a beautiful and a healthy garden. You know, so the Buddha talked a lot, you know, it's a very agrarian society that he lived in 2,500 years ago. And, you know, people could understand, you know, cultivation, you know, what we're doing, what we're doing with our hearts and minds are very similar to, you know, kind of very parallel to what we're doing with crops. You know, you sow seeds and you reap the crop that you, hopefully, if you do the right things with it, that you'll reap the benefits from what you sow. And similarly with what happens in our hearts and minds. You know, are we sowing seeds of kindness and generosity, compassion, loving kindness, mindfulness, or are we sowing seeds of anger, hatred, judgment, blame, all of these qualities? And you know, we know that if we sow the healthy seeds, it'll have healthy outcomes. And if we sow the seeds of anger and hatred, then a whole life and our experience will be permeated by the qualities that we cultivate. So we emphasize quite a lot in the teachings abandoning of unskillful states, how to work with fear and anger and judgment and blame, etc. You know, some of the skills we can develop, some of the practices we can use, you know, practices of RAIN, of recognizing, allowing, investigating, nurturing, non-judging. What I want to focus on today, and I think in the coming few sessions, is on cultivating the qualities that lead to freedom, to happiness, to well-being. So less of a focus on what we want to let go of and more on what we want to cultivate. But very much they're two sides of the same coin. The more we let go, the more we abandon the unskillful qualities, the more naturally the heart and the mind open. You know, we become more spacious, the mind, you know, mindfulness increases, and our connection with others increases. So, you know, they're very much, you know, related to each other, and two sides of the same coin. As we cultivate the wholesome states, the pull of the more afflictive states tends to fall away. That is kind of, the more we're cultivating loving kindness and compassion and these wholesome qualities, the less the mind tends to be caught up in anger and judgment and fear. We can't be doing both at the same time. You know, we can't be at the same time hating somebody and with a mind of love. I mean, it doesn't work that way. We might for a while, you know, move from one, you know, to another. But essentially, when we cultivate the beneficial states, the pull of the harmful states diminishes. And so what I want to look at today in the next few sessions are these 7 factors of awakening. They're called, they're 7 qualities that create the conditions for letting go and experiencing the deepest freedom. I'll just name them and I'll come back and talk about them. But the first is mindfulness. The second is, excuse me, is investigation, the quality of investigation. Investigating essentially our own experience, what's going on, bringing that kind of spotlight of interest, curiosity, investigation to our experience. The third is energy, you know, this quality of kind of effort and energy, kind of moving towards what we feel is, you know, is beneficial. The fourth is joy. Joy, kind of the feeling of spaciousness, could be rapture, you know, enjoyment. The fifth is tranquility, which is more calm. The mind becomes more calm, more settled. The sixth is concentration, the mind gathered, focused, concentrated, kind of stabilized. And the seventh is equanimity. Equanimity, you know, the state is, you know, of kind of a balanced state of heart and mind. These qualities are extremely important if we wish to live more freely. This is a quote from the Buddha. All of those Arahant Buddhas, those of the past, all of those beings that had fully awakened in the past, would be a way of saying that, attained to supreme enlightenment by abandoning the 5 hindrances, defilements of mind which weaken understanding, having firmly established the 4 foundations of mindfulness in their minds, and realized the 7 factors of awakening as they really are. So this, I'm going to share some quotes from the Buddha about these 7 factors of awakening that illustrate that this isn't just one more list of the Buddha's teachings, you know, 4 of these and 5 of those and 6 of those, the 4 foundations of mindfulness and the Eightfold Path and the the three jewels, and you could go on and on about the numerical list. This is a list of 7, but it's a really key one, and it comes it comes up over and over in the teachings. And I want to share some quotes from the Buddha on these 7 factors of awakening to underline that they're not just a random list of wholesome qualities. Here are some of the things the Buddha said about these 7 factors. Okay, this is the Connected Discourses of the Buddha, Samyutta Nikaya, and a whole section of this of these connected discourses are about the 7 factors of awakening. So here's a quote from the Buddha. Bhikkhus, monks, practitioners, these 7 factors of enlightenment, when developed and cultivated, lead to going beyond, from the near shore to the far shore. What 7? And then he says mindfulness, investigation, etc. Bhikkhus, these 7 factors of enlightenment or awakening, when developed and cultivated, are noble and emancipating. They lead the one who acts upon them out to the complete destruction of suffering. What 7? And then he goes through the 7 factors of enlightenment. So these are qualities that lead to complete freedom from suffering. A couple of others. Bhikkhus, monks, practitioners, just as all the rafters of a peaked house slant, slope, and inclined towards the roof peak, so when a bhikkhu or practitioner develops and cultivates the 7 factors of enlightenment, he or she slants, slopes, and inclines towards nirvana, towards complete freedom from suffering. So just as the roof kind of the rafters point towards the roof, so all of these teachings, these factors of awakening, point towards freedom. That we cultivate these qualities, and they lead us to the deepest freedom possible. The last one I'll share is one that's very worth thinking about. The Buddha says, there's a practitioner, a follower of the Buddha, comes to the Buddha and says, "Venerable Sir, it is said, an unwise dolt. In what way, Venerable Sir, is one called an unwise dolt?" And the Buddha says, "Bhikkhus, it's because one has not developed and cultivated the 7 factors of enlightenment that one is called an unwise dolt." So, if we don't want to be unwise dolts, we should cultivate these qualities, these 7 qualities. And the same discussion. "Venerable Sir, it is said, wise and alert, wise and alert. In what way, Venerable Sir, is one called wise and alert?" And the Buddha says, "Bhikkhus, its practitioners, it is because one has developed and cultivated the 7 factors of enlightenment that one is called wise and alert." So all of these, there's many, many more of these kind of statements, different parts of the teachings that really illustrate very, very strongly that these 7 qualities are essential qualities to develop and nurture if we want to create the conditions for letting go of clinging and for freeing our hearts. So that they're really, really at the heart of the Buddha's teachings, and they deserve our close attention. I think it's helpful, if you're not familiar with these qualities, perhaps to write them down, put them on a card, or many places you'll find them written, in the teachings. Copy them, make a photo on your phone, or even learn them by heart. And 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 it can be really helpful to, as you're meditating, whatever practice you're doing, just check in. Is mindfulness present right now? What are the qualities of mindfulness? Being here in a kind, attentive way. Is that present right now? Is it something that I could, or is the mind all over the place? Could I deepen and develop it some more? Investigation, this quality of interest, could this be developed more? Or am I caught up in doubting right now? Which is a kind of an opposite of investigation. It's kind of lack of investigation. These so these 7 qualities. The first, I'm going to talk a little bit about them, and just talk a little bit today in the coming minutes, and then we'll come back to them next week. The first, they begin with mindfulness. Mindfulness is the first of these 7 qualities, and it plays an important role in balancing the other qualities. Following mindfulness, there are 3 qualities that are called arousing qualities, because they bring the energy up. They kind of move us forward, where they're more kind of a somewhat more excited energy, a more energized energy, if you like. And the second 3 are more calming energies. So investigation kind of brings us, kind of opens the mind and kind of opens up space. And then energy is this quality of really, kind of moving forward, moving outward, doing things, that kind of creativity that's kind of associated with energy. And joy as well. Joy is kind of one of these it's kind of can have a very bubbly quality, very effervescent kind of quality. So these are kind of more outgoing energies. We need them. We need those qualities to have the interest to look at what we want to look at and pay attention. But we also need the calming energies, and these are tranquility. As the joy kind of gets quieter, we get calm and stiller, and then the mind gets more focused. You get that kind of way that this is kind of more gathering inward, and then equanimity is this balancing of the energies, but more associated with calm. So mindfulness helps balance the 3 more arousing energies and the 3 more calming energies, brings them into balance. So the 7, you can look at these 7 qualities, and they actually follow on one from one to another in the order that they come in. And I'll just walk through those a little bit. They can be practiced. We could at any time we could say, oh, joy is a bit lacking right now. Let me cultivate some qualities that will bring joy. Maybe practicing gratitude brings more joy into the heart and mind. So the qualities follow from each other. Once we establish mindfulness, the mind is present and gathered. Kind of we're kind of have a stable attention. With the mind present and aware, it really creates the conditions for being interested, being investigating, really looking at what our experience is. And what we're talking about with investigation isn't so much an analytical investigation. It's almost like the I in RAIN, the recognize, allow, investigate, nurture, as Tara Brach puts it, the last one. It's really looking at our subjective experience through the lens of the Dharma. Looking at this experience, is it helpful? Is this moving me towards greater happiness? Or am I getting more caught up in clinging and in suffering? So out of mindfulness, investigation arises more and more. And with investigation, the energy gets stronger. It's said that where attention goes, energy flows. So where we're putting our attention and our interest, the energy is tending to arise. we're kind of curious, we're interested, we're energized about our practice, about what's happening, what's going on. And that energy tends to, with some attention, lead into joy. You know, the heart tends to open, we become more spacious, and it can be the joy of absorption, deep absorption in the object of meditation, and it can be other more kind of broader everyday kinds of joy too. So that the out of energy comes joy, and then as the joy kind of calms and stabilizes more, what arises naturally is tranquility, a quality of calm, a settledness. And with calm, the mind gets more focused and concentrated. You know, the mind stays more readily on an object, you know, and with that comes a sense of peace and happiness and ease. And the more the concentration deepens, the more equanimity arises, a sense of balance amidst everything that's coming up, that kind of stability of mind. So we can cultivate these qualities, you know, one leading to the next, but ultimately what the practice is to develop all of these qualities. The Buddha's teaching that these 7 qualities, developed and balanced, create the conditions for complete letting go of suffering. I'm gonna just finish in a few minutes, but I'm just giving the kind of an opening to reflecting on these 7 qualities. There's a wonderful book on the foundations of mindfulness by Bhikkhu Analayo, and in one part of it, he's looking at these the 7 factors of awakening as part of the foundations of mindfulness. He says, kind of talking through what I've just been reflecting on, he says, on the basis of well-established mindfulness, one investigates the nature of subjective reality. That's the investigation quality. Once sustained investigation gains momentum, energy. With growing insight, the object of contemplation becomes clearer, and the meditator feels inspired. So energy gives rise to joy. To continue with the practice, joy in the practice. If at this point, he says, the danger of getting carried away by elation and agitation can be avoided, continued contemplation leads to a state of calmness when the mind stays effortlessly with its meditation object. This is tranquility, without succumbing to distraction. And so the mind becomes more concentrated. And with maturing insight, this process culminates in a state of firm equanimity and detachment. So this sequence of developing these qualities of heart and mind. So what I want to do really is just to introduce these qualities and encourage you to think about these 7 qualities. You know, as I said, I find it helpful in meditation, you know, particularly on longer retreats, to use these 7 factors as reference points for what is developing well and what might be calling for more attention. You know, you might find yourself feeling quite energized, but the mind might not be very concentrated. You know, the energy would be strong, but the concentration, the mind might be kind of bouncing around all over the place. You know, the joy might be strong, but there might not be very much calm. Those might not be very balanced. So we need to kind of balance these factors, these qualities together, and then they lead to the deepest freedom that the teachings point to. And the monk, I'm just a teacher I was just quoting, he says, it's at this point when we develop these qualities, when the inspired momentum of mindful investigation takes place against a background of tranquil composure. So you got the quality of kind of insight and investigation, but balanced by calm and tranquility and concentration, that the mental balance needed for the breakthrough to awakening comes about. So really, these qualities, when we develop them fully to their fullest extent, then we really place ourselves in a position to really let go completely, to let go of clinging completely. So what I want to do in the coming few weeks is to explore these qualities, just kind of run through them and, you know, look at the different elements of each of the qualities as we, you know, as we look at these seven factors of awakening together over this time. So let's just kind of take a moment. It's a lot of words, a lot of concepts here. I'll just run through them again as we'll sit for a minute or so. Mindfulness, this quality of being present, the quality of interest, of investigation. What am I noticing? What am I aware of right now? Through the lens of, you know, is this leading to happiness or is this leading to suffering? If I'm present with this, my experience. And what's the level of energy? You know, is energy present right now in the body, in the heart, and the mind? And joy, is there a feeling of inspiration, of kind of maybe of joy, of happiness in the practice, a kind of a non-clinging kind of happiness present? And is there a quality of kind of settledness, of calm, of tranquility? You know, maybe balancing the joy. And what about concentration? Is the mind settled enough here in this moment, being present? And what about the quality of equanimity, of just balancing, holding whatever's coming up with equanimity, with balance, with ease, and a settled mind? Maybe just taking a breath or two, meeting whatever you're experiencing with kindness, with care, with acceptance. And then you could open your eyes or come back, and we'll take some moments for coming into our bodies. Emily will lead us in some movement. Thank you. Thank you, Emily.
Take a moment to rise up and allow yourself to open up to the space around you, keeping your arms low around your hips, feeling the balance change as you sway from one side to the other. You might even lift one heel and then the other. And then allow yourself to lift your arms a little higher if it's comfortable. Feeling the container of this space as your arms feel the air against them. And then open up wide. Inhale as you lift up and grasp your left wrist in your right hand and extend out to the right and tilt. And you can always move dynamically in and out or rest here. Take a moment to breathe into that left rib cage. And inhale up, switch hands and lengthen out to the left until opening up that right rib cage. And lift up, float your arms down, move your shoulders independently, allowing the freedom of movement, and then move them the other way. And then draw your hands up into cactus position. Exhale, float them out. Down, rise up. Exhale, float down. And rise up. Last time. Floating down. Rising. And so take a look over at that left palm. Turning that in, and then switch with an inhale as you shift to the right palm. Left palm up. Right palm. Last time to the left. To the right. Float your arms down and roll your shoulders together. Energizing your upper back and middle back. And then float them the other way. And then come into a flat back. Place your hands above your knees. Extend your head away from your hips. Breathing in, exhale, lower down, however much you'd like to lower. Releasing to the pull of gravity. Stretching your arms. You can support yourself against your legs or not. Or just reach down to the floor. Deep breath in, exhale with a sigh. And then place your hands above your knees. Tuck your tailbone under as you roll up, stacking the vertebrae. Bring your shoulders around your ears and allow them to release down. Bring your hands behind your back. On an inhale, your head, lift your chest. Exhale, lower the hands, extending your arms down. Back to your waist to release. One more time. Inhale, lift up. Exhale, lower your hands. Drawing in your shoulder blades. And then release back to the waist. Float your arms and do your own dance. Floating in the space around you, however you might wish. No one's watching. And then bring your hands above your head in prayer position. And draw down to your heart, thumbs resting at your sternum. And take a bow. Thank you for your practice.
Please feel free to share anything, anything you'd like in the chat about how, anything that came up for you, anything that came up in the meditation or the talk or in the group. And we'll be continuing a little bit more informally after we finish at 12:15. But I think what I'd like us to do is to have a meditation. It'll be a little shorter than I wanted, but about 10 minutes to finish off. And then we'll have some announcements. So let's just, again, just find a posture, come into shifting into a meditative posture, taking your seat. Make any adjustments that you'd like to make to be as comfortable as you can be. Just open to what's present right now. You might notice as it feels, you sense anything very different from when we began an hour and a bit ago. What are you noticing? What's arising in the body, in the heart, and the mind? Can whatever is here be held with kindness, with acceptance, without judgment. So inviting an attitude, a quality of receptivity, receiving what is coming in from outside and from inside, from the body and from the senses, from the emotions arising, feelings. Can it all be held with kindness, with care, without judgment? As Dorothy Hunt says, peace is this moment without judgment, this moment in the heart space where everything that is welcome. If whatever is present is met without judgment and with kindness, then this is a moment of peace, even if it's in the midst of a lot of upheaval or turmoil, whatever. We can find peace by meeting this moment wholeheartedly, open-heartedly. So if there is some resistance, some tightness, some wanting to get rid of something, see if you can just make space for it. Allow what's here to come and go. How is it to say yes to what you might typically say no to? Try and push away or repress or avoid. This is from the Mind of Absolute Trust by the third Zen patriarch, Sengsan. The great way isn't difficult for those who are unattached to their preferences. Let go of longing and aversion, and everything will be perfectly clear. When you cling to a hairbreadth of distinction, heaven and earth are set apart. If you want to realize the truth, don't be for or against. The struggle between good and evil is the primal disease of the mind. inviting an attitude of kindness, acceptance, that can hold whatever's here right now, whatever's arising, whatever's coming in through the senses, through the mind. Can this moment be a moment of peace, of ease, of well-being? Whatever's here, whatever's present. Dorothy Hunt says, does peace require an absence from your boss, your spouse, yourself? Do you think peace will come some other time, some other place than here, some other time than now, in some other heart than yours? Peace is this moment without judgment. That's all. This moment in the heart space where everything that is welcome. Peace is this moment without thinking that it should be some other way, that you should feel some other thing, that your life should unfold according to your plans. Peace is this moment without judgment, this moment in the heart space where everything that is welcome. We're going to finish off with some announcements. I'll just make share a few things I have coming up. Regina, who many of you know from coming teaching when I'm away, and I are going to be teaching a half day workshop on February 26th, and it's going to be out about an hour out of DC at Spring. The name is New Haven.
No,
Foxhaven.
Foxhaven.
Foxhaven. That's it. Yeah. But, there's a limited capacity because of we want to have some distancing and things. But that's February 26th. Can we share that? Yes, Patrick shared it. Thank you, Patrick. Thank you, Pat. Yeah, that's coming up and really looking forward to that. 10 to 2 on the 26th. Also, I've got a 7-week class beginning on March 29th on the heart practices of loving kindness, compassion, joy, sympathetic joy, and equanimity. And I'm really looking forward to that class. I hope you can join us for that one. That's on the, we'll be sharing the link to all of that. I'm doing a weekend workshop with Rebecca, May 6th through 8th. That's in person as well. The heart practice is online. May 6th to 8th. And that's in Pennsylvania, about a couple of hours out of town. Still got a few spaces open for the retreat in Ireland and in the middle of June. If anyone would like to join Rebecca and myself for a retreat in County Mayo in Ireland. And then I have a 3-hour poetry for meditation and contemplation on Insight Timer. If you go to my page on Insight Timer, you'll find that there. I'm really looking forward to that as well. And the other thing I share is, last thing is no cost for the classes. This is mainly for new folks who aren't familiar, may not be familiar with Dana, but you're invited if you're able to do so, and if you're inclined to make a donation of Dana or generosity. It's how the teachings have come down through 25 centuries and help support the teacher, in this case me, and I'm grateful for your